A brisk sea breeze stirs the air along Blackpool's Golden Mile, and the salty temps off the Irish Sea mingles with the sweet promise of hot doughnuts and freshly spun candyfloss. The low roar of the crowd is laced with shrieks of laughter and the distant clang of arcade machines, while a cavalcade of candy-coloured lights buzzes to life above the promenade, the illuminations fighting bravely against the lingering summer dusk. Here, amid the tides and turmoil of change, Blackpool in the swinging 60s is a heady blend of old-fashioned northern charm and the modern world on the march. It's the height of August, and trainloads pour into town from all over Lancashire and far beyond, cases in hand and children in tow, all eyes wide with anticipation. Around the North Pier, the black and white signs still greet excursionists fresh off the steam trains. Caps tilted and skirts swirling in the breeze. Cars choke the prom, chrome bumpers flashing in the sun. Coaches emblazoned with Morecambe and Heysham crawl past as families crane their necks towards the sea. Mixed in the crowd are day trippers, weekstayers, and the odd honeymoon couple, each swept up in the hopeful energy of a British seaside summer, all clutching their precious shillings and threepenny bits. The morning brings its own rituals. Down on the sands, mothers unroll tartan blankets while dads fuss with windbreakers and revive battered thermos flasks. Children, shoes abandoned and socks rolled into neat balls, pounce eagerly onto an expectant line of donkeys. Their names, Daisy, Trigger, Bess, are painted on rough wooden boards, and worn leather saddles are slung over gentle, drowsy backs. A wiry donkey man, cap pressed tight against the wind, orchestrates the ride with a gentle call, and soon a patient parade winds its way past lapping waves and sandcastles, small hands clinging for dear life. The air is rich with briny damp, the tickle of seawater froth coaxed up by the surf. Gulls squabble overhead, ever hopeful for a stray crust or the odd chip from a distracted child. Behind them, the promenade pulses with glorious excess. From the penny arcades comes the chime of loose coins and rising chorus of laughter. Grown-ups crowding odds and ends pushers and the mechanical horses of the Derby race, while rows of children attack the glass cabinets with tiny book-wooden sticks, hopeful for a lucky slide. In the shade of faded Victorian shelters, grandmothers unfurl copies of the Daily Mirror, and butter-kissed popcorn makes its rounds. As the day unfolds, the rhythm of Blackpool life dances between sunburnt flânery and frenzied excitement. Stalls hawk Blackpool rock in lurid pinks and blues, bubbled with names running through the middle. A child's delight and a dentist's despair. Sweet shop counters bristle with jars of humbugs, fizzers, and bubblegum, and pocketfuls of sixpences vanish eagerly on pick-unmix at Woolworths. No trip is complete without a turn along the piers. At the South Pier, the wooden boards flex under clusters of holiday-makers, the familiar thump of music hall drifts from within, and outside, vendors toss paper-wrapped chips over battered counters, the vinegar sharp and the heat of them tingling through the gleaming paper. Those looking for a thrill might wander to the pleasure beach, where the giant wooden framework of the Big Dipper rattles with a mix of terror and delight, and teenagers queue in clusters for their chance to spin on the waltzer. The soundtrack, a swirl of transistor hits and the crackle of distant pop on pirate radio. Through it all, Blackpool's signature illuminations loom, promising magic after sunset. Come early evening, families shuffle up to the tram stops, hands sticky with toffee and rock, anticipation building as dusk slips in. The trams themselves are a parade, decked out in chips of colored glass and light bulbs, shaped like rockets and dragons and battleships. With the flick of a switch, the entire seafront glows, miles of intricate displays pulsing from lamppost to lamppost. bathing the night in a fantastical, technicolor dazzle. Local kids, cradling lions, made lollies, gasp in awe, while courting couples clatter tokens into pier fortune-tellers or share a last bag of sugared almonds beneath the sparkling canopy. But Blackpool, for all the soundtrack of laughter and the glitz, is threaded through with rituals both humble and profound. Down back streets, away from the clatter of the mile, boarding houses bustle with voices from the Midlands and Scotland, damp swimsuits draped over musty radiators, and the clink of teacups echoing along creaking landings. Local landladies, masters of the full English and strict curfews, switch on gas fires against the northern chill, and close each day with tales of troublesome boarders, vanished towels, and lost teeth down plug holes. The slow trundle of the morning milk float, the postman's smudged hands, the hopeful hum of bingo parlours along Abingdon Street, all combine in a quietly heroic dance, each part essential to the bright Blackpool whole. For many, Blackpool is more than a holiday. It's a rite of passage, a living carousel of old friends, first crushes, and sunburnt noses. The annual pilgrimage to the coast is stitched into the fabric of northern life for mill workers, factory girls, and miners' sons. It is a brief, egalitarian leveller. In the candy-striped deckchairs, every family enjoys the same sea view, the same chance at a bingo win, the same sticky novelty of rock. In an age before package holidays and cheap flights to Spain, the sun, when it deigned to appear, was good enough, and the turning of the tides promised a reset before another year of factory hooters and foggy commutes. Yet change was always creeping in. By the end of the 60s, the first signs of the foreign holiday would flicker on the horizon. Glimpses of suntans from the continent, postcards from Torremolinos, and talk of jet engines rather than steam trains. The old certainties began to unravel, not all at once, but in slow, colourful threads. The closure of grand old theatres, shabbier B&B, struggling for guests, and the stalwarts of the sand turning reluctantly towards amusement arcades and garish new rides. The donkeys still lined up each year, the illuminations still flickered to life, but beneath the cheerful excess, salt-kissed air tingles on skin, woven with sun-warmed tar, beer, and fried onions. Pebbles crunch and shift beneath sand shoes as a restless sea laps at Brighton, cyclonic promenade, battered blue railings, candyfloss clouds, and the heady pulse of something new. It's the early 1960s. Brighton is Britain on the brink, glamorous, cheeky, and very much alive. Early morning on the seafront begins with a procession of horses hauling wooden carts piled high with striped deckers, their canvas crisp and cool from a night under the stars. Attendants in short jackets unlock neat iron chains, setting up row upon row of green and white and red and blue stripes, a familiar patchwork rippling from Palace Pier to West Pier. Elderly couples, some in pressed tweeds, others wrapped in worn cardigans, claim front row seats to the dais gentle theatre. Children squealing as gulls swoop for chips, the distant strains of a fairground organ, the clink and fizz of Tizer bottles and glass lemonade. By late morning, the beach scene is a parade of textures and fashion. Bare, sun-blushed shoulders, headscarves done up with pins, and the gleam of chrome scooters lined up at the top of the slope. This is the age of the mod's bespoke suits, parka jackets, skinny ties, and a curious, restless energy. Young men and women saunter arm in arm with an assured coolness, pride in their latest purchases from Carnaby Street or Churchill Square, smart new shops, Vespers and Lambrettas, bedecked with mirrors and lights, hum along King's Road. Their owners pausing for photographs in front of souvenir stalls, hawking sticks of pink Brighton rock and postcards featuring cheeky, saucy cartoons. Drifting into the gentle din of the amusements, there's a whirl of coins and laughter. Inside the arcades on the pier, the smell of warm metal, popcorn, and greasy fingerprints is heady. Hands, sticky from Lions-made ice lollies, reach for tuppence pieces. The bright, clunking tones of pinball machines share space with the thud of wooden mallets at the test your strength, accompanied by a soundscape of seagull cries and the persistent jangle of coins. Teenagers in smart jumpers cluster round the jukebox. The hits of the Kinks, the Beatles, and the Small Faces tumble out. These are anthems for an era determined to have more fun, to dance, to laugh a little louder. Around lunchtime, fish and chips prove impossible to resist. Greaseproof paper packets warm chilly hands as queues snake out of every chippy from the lanes to the seafront. The scent floats on the wind, sharp vinegar, hot oil, the hint of paper salt. Money changes hands in the old ways, half-crowns and threepenny bits. Careful fingers counting coins from knitted purses or deep coat pockets. The rhythm of pre-decimal Britain as familiar as the tolling bells above the promenade. No disposable plates or plastic forks, here yet only fingers, lips, and pebbles for a makeshift picnic. Knees tucked under scratchy tartan blankets, hair teased high and skirts cinched tight. Through the afternoon, the West Pier's ironwork hovers over the shimmering haze. Weathered boards creak beneath the steps of day-trippers from London and the suburbs, a blend of Cockney banter, Sussex drawl, and excited, wide-eyed children in hand-me-down shorts. Kiosks groan under the weight of rock dummies, toffee apples, and chocolate mice. A little further along, fortune-tellers' booths tempt with promises scrawled on sandwich boards. Beach photographers dash between holidaymakers, coaxing forced smiles for sepia souvenirs to be dispatched home. Wish you were here. Stalls run by women in paper hats boast crab rolls and pickled eggs. Local jokes spilling quick and dry as the Brighton breeze. As shadows lengthen, the pier comes alive with neon shimmer and the shimmer of anticipation. Sweethearts clutch hands on the helter-skelter. The air bristles with excitement and the scent of popcorn mingled with stale beer from the bars. The laughter is sharper now, wilder, as mods and day-trippers mix under the glowing lights. Beyond the day's amusements, an undercurrent runs party-going, dance-hall nights at the Regent Ballroom, a certain flicker of youthful rebellion. By the late 60s, talk of scuffles between mods and rockers will become as much a part of the Brighton legend as any rock or penny arcade. But for now, the mood is exuberant. Buzzing a sense that anything might happen before the last bus conductor calls, "Fares, please." Come closing time, the remnants of the day linger like perfume. A child's lost spade, crushed cigarette stubs, the taste of mint humbugs and vinegar on lips. Early evening draws out the damp, briny scent of night, and the lamps along the promenade light up the never-ending shuffle of footprints. Some visitors pile onto the green and cream Southdown coaches parked up for the slow journey home. Others trail back toward terraced guest houses, salt-kissed and full of stories to murmur through the midnight hush. On the piers, clean-up crews whistle along one last circuit, pushing litter carts. Before Brighton folds itself back into quiet shadows and the sea resumes its patient conversation with the stones. For generations, places like Brighton's beach and pier were more than a day out or a postcard scene. They were a stage upon which modern Britain performed its hopes, its worries, and its self-discovery. In the 1960s, Brighton became a touchstone for change, a place where tradition and modernity brushed shoulders, where cockles and whelks met Italian coffee, where brass bands faded beneath a Motown beat. For local families, the seawall was a boundary and a promise. For day trippers, the promenade was freedom in miniature, lived out in deckchairs and daring fashions. The arrival of motorways, package holidays to Spain, and changing tastes would gradually shift the crowds south and away. And with them, the old pier amusements shrank, rock factories grew quieter, and the heady thrill of mods tearing up Marine Parade became stories for rainy evenings in beachside pubs. But the memory lingers, a wind-blown afternoon, a jukebox tune, the snap of a canvas decker, and the shimmer of lights dancing on the channel. Brighton was always more than its pebbles and piers. It was a feeling of camaraderie, cheek, and chasing summer until, salt in the air, a jumble of seagull cries above the roar of waves lapping against the sea-wall and the scent of vinegary chips clinging to the breeze. For thousands of Britons in the 1960s, Rhyl was the very definition of escape. On a breezy Saturday in high summer, the promenade gleamed with the shine of patterned handbags and the flash of children's windmills spinning madly in the Welsh gusts. By late morning, light danced on the caramel sands, and the distant bell of a miniature train sounded a summons few would resist. At the heart of Rhyl's golden era lay the proud arcades, their illuminated facades flickering with promises. Fortunes to be won on penny pushers, treasures to pluck from glass jars using the steady claw of a crane. Inside, the air buzzed with excitement, every victory punctuated by the clatter of coins and the ring of slot bells. Bored teenagers loitered near the jukebox, thumbing through the latest Beatles or dusty Springfield singles, their voices rising above the rattle of bubblegum machines and the occasional bark of a stern attendant. The cream of childhood earnings, pocket money in sixpences and threepenny bits, vanished all too quickly into silent one-armed bandits and the hopeless dream of an electric racing car set for home. Walk a little way north along the seafront, and you stumble upon a world of communal joy in the form of the holiday camps. Those bustling enclaves of chalets and canteens, where deckers lined up like soldiers in perfect rows, and the air rang with laughter, sing-alongs, and the soft thwack of shuttlecocks on makeshift badminton courts. In the mornings, families headed for the beach, buckets poised for castle-making, while the wind swept fussily through canvas windbreaks, and the sun played hide-and-seek with passing puffs of Welsh cloud. Children queued up for Lions-made lollies, some choosing classic vanilla in chocolate, others daring the tomato red of a fab. Sticky hands wiped surreptitiously on Macs and knickers. Afternoon was carnival time. Knobbly knees contests and egg and spoon races, drawing crowds with gentle hilarity. Rewards were modest. A paper medal, a round of applause, perhaps a photograph in next week's Gazette. Rhyl's dazzling amusements weren't confined to the sprawling holiday parks. The town centre's short parade beckoned, decked out in familiar banners and bright bunting. Woolworths standing sentry beside tiny seaside newsagents and family-run. The crackle of vinyl played in the background, the popular records of the day providing a ready-made soundtrack as girls compared shell necklaces and boys eyed up model boats in the window. Saturdays saw the town at its liveliest. Striped awnings fluttered as market stalls laden with rock and fudge did a brisk trade, and fathers stocked up on small change at the bank before treating their brood to a go on the slot machines. There was always a queue for the corner chippy, the unmistakable aroma of malt, vinegar, and the suspicious sheen of a deep-fried sausage, promising lunchtime bliss wrapped in crinkling newsprint and eaten on a bench watching the unpredictable parade of summer hats and knotted handkerchiefs shuffle by. Of course, no trip to Rhyl in the 60s would be complete without succumbing to the odd spectacle. The Sun Centre pool, though a later addition, was prefigured by outdoor lidos and the buzzing pavilion theatre. Here families lined up in sensible jackets and sundresses for an evening's light entertainment. Magicians with endless sleeves, dog acts, and a comedian or two whose jokes were as familiar as the climb up to the balcony benches. Rainy days saw crowds spill into the Palace or Regal cinemas. Popcorn before it was fashionable, stewed tea in paper cups, and the gentle, communal hush as the projector finally rattled to life. Other times, contentment could be found in smaller things. Milk floats trundled down the back streets in the blue mornings, bottles clinking softly on their daily rounds, while holidaymakers still dozed behind net curtains. Mid-afternoon meant sweets from the paper bag, barley sugars, fruit salads, perhaps a few flying saucers to dissolve on the tongue as stifling carriages rattled towards home again. Pressed cheek to window pane, the smell of sea and sugar lingering in tired hair. Some afternoons a gentle chill rolled in off the sea mothers clutching cardigans closer as they pledged the day would end with just one more ride. Just one more go on the swings until the children's faces smeared with suncream and chocolate quietly surrendered to the end of holiday contentment. For the communities who lived and worked here, the guesthouse landladies, the stallholders, the bus conductors ready with a smile and a punch of their ticket machine. The 60s were a time when every summer dream, every stray coin, seemed to pass through Rhyl. The pace of life ebbed and flowed with the tides of holidaymakers, hundreds arriving by train from the Midlands and the North, their suitcases scraping the platform and their hearts light with anticipation. For a week or a fortnight, these guests brought the world with them, new accents, buoyant fashions, and the promise of stories to be told back home. But even then, change was in the sea air. The arrival of affordable package holidays to Spain beckoned with the allure of sun-guaranteed and low prices, gently drawing visitors further afield. Color televisions flickered in lounge windows, glimpses of a bigger, more colorful world, just a channel away. Traditions remained stubbornly cherished, but seasons felt somehow shorter. By the 70s, a new generation was beginning to look elsewhere for their excitement. Yet, for many, the memory of Rhyl clings as surely as sand to their shoes. A memory of summer freedom, of frantic excitement and lazy afternoons. Of a place where family and fun came together. With every shock of cold water at the shoreline and every swirl of soft surf on a cone, even now, when the gulls wheel overhead and the promenade stretches under cloud shadow, a ghost of that laughter lingers on the air, just waiting to be found again by anyone who stops to listen. Were you one of the bucketants paid brigade, or do you remember the thrill of a sixpence disappearing into a blinking machine? Share your Rhyl memories, the scents, the sweets, the summer shivers, with us in the comments below. And join the England time capsule in keeping these seaside escapes alive for everyone. The salt temps of the estuary is on the air, mingling with frying oil and fresh rolled sugar as sunlight glints sharp on the chrome railings. Down on the Southend seafront, it's the summer of 1966 and the beach shimmers with families. Couples and kids in paper crowns. The kind you win from penny pushers or fairground stalls. Somewhere, a transistor radio crackles with the hint of a Beatles tune, just audible above the laughter and the shrill clatter of arcades turning coin into clatter and reward. There's a distinctive thrill to arriving at Southend and Sea by train. The anticipation building as the track unfolds beside muddy salt flats, and then, at last, the platform spills its passengers out towards the promenade. On a Saturday in mid-July, the place pulses with the easy energy of the southern seaside. The kind powered by ice cream, knotted handkerchief hats, and the sheer joy of a chippy tea. On the horizon, stretching over a mile into the twinkling Thames, Britain's longest pleasure pier basks in the sunlight, curious, unwavering finger pointing out to sea. Some days it feels as if you could walk that distance to infinity itself. Underneath the promenade's Victorian canopies, families linger outside the kiosks, counting out pre-decimal pennies in small, greasy fists for a go on the slot machines. The amusements are alive with worry fruit machines decked in gleaming chrome and bright bulbs. The promise of a win, little more than a clutch of fetching copper coins or perhaps a free go. The floors beneath their feet are dusted with dropped chips and sweet wrappers. Woolworth's pick-and mix bags clutched tight, the contents steadily shrinking as parents warn not to spoil the appetite for dinner. Meanwhile, the air is split by the occasional squawk of gulls, shameless opportunists, forever on standby for a dropped crust or an unattended paper cone of salty vinegary chips. Over by the pier entrance, the queue forms long and sun-soaked, peopled with every manner of detrapamods in puckus. Dads in rolled-up trousers, relishing the brief relief of sea-damp sand between their toes. For a family feeling flush, the little pier train awaits, a red and cream carriage trundling out across the open water on thin iron tracks, ferrying excited children and patient grannies who remember this place before the war. The rhythmic rattle of the wheels is backed by the alternating clang and hush of distant fair rides, blending with the calls of the pier stewards as they keep the crowds flowing. On colder days, the wind slices in, turning the crossing into a brisk adventure. But on a perfect July afternoon, the heat is so real you might almost believe Southend could rival Cannes, if only for a golden hour or two. Back ashore, the amusements spill across Marine Parade, helter-skelters, spiraling in splashes of sun-faded red and yellow. Candyfloss stalls, twisting their treats on wooden sticks. Lions-made freezers heavy with ice lollies that vanish the moment they touch eager tongues. Laughter rides the coastal breeze from the dodgems and the laughter loops. Billows from mothers with rolled-up sleeves who've snuck off their shoes. Toes burrowed into warm sand, and perhaps there's sand between their sandwiches too. Somewhere nearby, an older couple share a flask of strong tea, the kind poured from a tartan thermos that's been through 100 such excursions. Watching the scene and recalling Southend from their own courting days, the arcades are a world unto themselves, dim-lit but alive. Inside, rows of penny slots and pinball machines tempt youngsters with the clatter and flash of moving parts. Names like Silver Falls and High Flyer, promising if only for a moment that victory is within reach. The machines doled out winnings grudgingly, but the thrill was always in the chase. Chasing a few extra coins to spend at the tuck shop, or perhaps to put towards a paper kite from across the road, the sort that could take wild flight over the green trailing string as it went. The air inside is warm with body heat, flavored with popcorn, and thick with the cloying scent of brass and electricity, timeless in its way, even as the prizes change with the seasons. Along the pier, couples huddle beneath striped windbreaks, sharing jokes that only they can hear. The girls with beehive hairdos lacquered against the wind. Lads, spurred on by bravado and Crestamint chewing gum. Some things are tokens: cheap plastic sunglasses, a kiss-me-quick hat, an instant photo from a seaside booth, destined to fade with the years but ever present in that instant. Out towards the jetty, you can find anglers with lines draped over the side, patient as time, eyes narrowed against the horizon. Kids gather in groups, plotting their next push on the bumper cars, already half covered in sand and the proof of a day well spent. Somewhere between the sizzle of frying fish and the hopeful tinkle of a push halfpenny, Southend's summer days draw together the lives of thousands, even if only for a stolen afternoon. For local families, this was the big day out, never mind the expense or the weather, which could shift in a heartbeat from dazzling to drab. For Londoners, it was a shot at freedom, where the air tasted of possibility and just a hint of adventure. The pier was more than wood and iron. It was a launching point, a meeting place, a link to memory. Whether drenched in sunlight or shrouded in sea mist, it cast its spell, holding together the hopes of generations. Time, though, is a fickle thing. The decades rolled on, and so much changed. Holidays abroad became within reach for many, nudged lovingly along by charter flights and package deals. The arrival of colour telly and cassette tapes brought new distractions, and the high street shops began to look much the same from town to town. Out with bomb sites and corner shops, in with multiplexes and faintly American burger bars, Southend still drew crowds, but the world around it was changing. Old pier trains replaced, original arcades refitted, the swagger and style of post-war Britain giving way to something slicker, faster, and perhaps just a little less enchanted. Yet the heart of Southend-on-Sea, the sun-washed promenades, the relentless optimism of its amusements, the shared delight of chasing coins and hopes along the edge of the water remains stitched through countless families' stories. In every, a briny breeze carries the cawing of gulls through the crisp morning air as sunlight dances across Scarborough's South Bay. It is the summer of 1964. The pebbled sands are already peppered with wooden deck chairs and boldly striped windbreaks, while the first eager families tumble from cherrybanks parked along the esplanade, buckets and spades in hand. Beneath the ancient gaze of Scarborough Castle, the little seaside town readies itself for another day of laughter, splashing, and that unmistakable scent of salt, vinegar and seaweed wafting from every pier and promenade. For generations, Scarborough has been the jewel of the Yorkshire coast, a vivid canvas for childhood memory and family tradition. But in the bright, bustling 1960s, it finds itself at a golden age crossroads. The world is changing fast, and so too are the rhythms of British seaside life. Still, there are time-honoured rituals and simple pleasures that bridge old and new. Take the funicular railway, for instance, stalwart since Victorian days, but in the 60s still very much the way to ascend Scarborough's daunting cliffs with a smile. The clack and whir of the funicular cable echoes down the stone tunnel as two carriages pass each other, a brief flash of faces pressed to glass, lost in childish wonder as they gaze out at the endless blue. Inside, the air is tickled with whiffs of sand, engine oil, and whatever snacks have been secreted on board for the ride. Pensioners clasp their handbags tight. Toddlers clutch the pennies they'll spend on rock or lemonade below, marveling at how the world shrinks to Toy Town size. As the town unwinds itself beneath them, spin round onto the seafront, and the rhythm of the place is unmistakable. Bus conductors in navy uniforms shepherd noisy crowds off double-deckers parked outside the Olympia amusements, the doors creaking as voices pour out, clutching heavy bags full of towels, buckets, and tins of salmon sandwiches wrapped in waxed paper. Across the road, fish and chip shops do roaring trade long before noon no proper. Scarborough Day is complete without fingers greasy from newspaper-wrapped haddock, laced with a sharp glug of sarsons and a hot fluffy chip, pinched, not quite cool, but all the better for it. Smoky cues snake from every chippy's Dordick, Parker's on Eastborough, perhaps, or the famed Harbour Bar, with its rainbow of ice cream tubs stacked in chest freezers behind the counter, all holding out the promise of a feast worth the weight and change from a half-crown if you're lucky. The mingled aromas of frying fish, malt vinegar, and hot lard are as much a part of Scarborough's air as the scent of the sea itself. Further along, on the tide-worn sands, comes the unmistakable cry of the Punch and Judy man. Children clustered tight upon the battered wooden benches, clutching lions-made Zoom lollies, their knees sand-caked and sun. A battered, striped booth stands proud against the wind, the little red curtain twitching as Punch's shrill cackle rings out. Mr. Punch and Judy have been tormenting each other for generations. Their jokes as bright and brash as the paint on their puppets. It's anarchic, slapstick, and oddly comforting, a constant in summertime, when all you need is a bit of mischief and a cheering crowd. As the performance goes on, parents lean gently against the low walls, sneakily unwrapping cellophane from barley sugars, half paying attention as the puppets bicker and the children's laughter rings wild and unhindered against the sweep of the bay. Beside the amusements, the piers are alive with eager fishermen and children cradling new plastic shrimping nets, hopeful of catching tiddlers among the rocks. Just a few steps away, slot machines hum and fizz in dimly lit arcades. A cacophony of bells, the thrum of halfpenny coins rattling down fruit machines, and pop music perhaps, the Beatles or dusty Springfield bleeding out onto the promenade. Prizes hang above the counters in Woolworth's colourful buckets. Garish sunglasses, roll of stripy beach towels tempting with the kind of glamour only holiday pocket money can buy, and for those wanting to bring a morsel of Scarborough home, sticks of hard pink seaside rock, stamped confidently with the town's name, are displayed in every sweet shop window, not just a treat, but a small, edible badge of the adventure. Evening in Scarborough brings a shift, a softer melody as the day's boisterous energy gives way to the glow of illuminated signs and a gentle babble from the pubs along Eastborough and Dean Road. Families bundle into guesthouses and B&B as some, with faintly musty floral carpets and the gentle hiss of gas heaters ready to tally the day's treasures, smoother stones, lost shoes reunited, copper coins and empty ice cream tubs now crusted with sand. There might be a twilight game of rounders up on the lawns, or a last sneaky trip for a paper-wrapped slab of bread pudding, or a final fizzy shandy from the local offlet. As the sea mist rolls in, the winking light of slot machines grows brighter against the dusk, promising one more spin, one last try for the elusive cuddly toy behind smeared glass. This was the pulse of Scarborough in the swinging 60s, a place where simple thrills could be savoured with just a few bob in your pocket, and the greatest riches were measured not in currency but in experience. Seaside towns like Scarborough knitted together countless families from Sheffield to Leeds, creating a common thread of memory and identity, even as the wider world shifted around them. The habitual summer migration, by train, by charabanc, by Austin, a 40 offered escape, restoration, and something close to magic, at least for a few precious days each year. But the ebb and flow of tradition rarely stands still. The arrival of affordable foreign package holidays in the 1970s would draw some of these crowds away to Spanish shores and sun-soaked beaches, while motorways gave shape to new freedoms and new destinations. Through it all, Scarborough, like so many British seaside towns, adapted, holding fast to its charm even as fortunes changed. The bright amusements, the taste of hot chips by the sea, the raucous calls of Punch and Judy, these echoes linger, woven into the sands and stones of the bay. Today, if you close your eyes and breathe in deep, you might still catch a